How you doing, YouTube? Matt Massa Beer Reviews back with a little bit of homebrew up in this piece in the form of Greenlief with an I-E, not an E-E, Brewing Company out of Pittsburgh, PA. It's the Roast is Strong with this one. Yeah, this is a 2020 homebrew. Oak Bourbon Cold Brewed Coffee Vanilla Stout. 6.5% comes courtesy of my boy Dan, a.k.a. Disco Pie. Yeah, he sent me off a whole bunch of box of Pittsburgh. A lot of aged stuff. And this was in there. I don't know if he actually said it was his homebrew. I'm going to call it his homebrew. I assume it's his homebrew. So we're going to drink it as such. We're going to treat it as such. If I am wrong in that aspect, I apologize. I am in the middle of the review. I don't feel like looking up the notes. A little bit of kind of a rusty oxidation up top here, so we'll see how that acts. Ooh, a nice big hiss on that sucker. So you're talking about a bourbon barrel, oak bourbon, so oak chipped bourbon with cold brew coffee and vanilla, and a very relatively low ABV stout. You're talking about 6.5. That's not a big beer. So we'll see how this is hold up. As you can see, the big white sticker on the front is from 2020. That could mean this beer could be 3 months old or it could be 16 months old. Most people brew these beers in the colder months. I assume relatively fresh. We'll see what's what. Label-wise, got a little go-goo on there. If you haven't watched The Mandalorian yet, then hey, spoiler alert. What can I say? And as you see, the beer definitely looks the part of a stout. Looks like a nice, rich, hefty-duty, thick stout with that 6.5%. Definitely looks the part of a bigger stout. Nice, soft, kind of malted malt colored head on that sucker. Let's see if we can get a nose. Small. And, it's a 6.5% stout. I'm not going to sit here and say I was expecting to get punched in the face, but it has this kind of light kind of nose to it, light aromatics. Coffee is definitely leading the way here. There is a soft little chocolate component, maybe a little bit of roasty malts. There's nothing as far as bittering from the coffee. It's cold brewed. You wouldn't expect as much. And the vanilla is definitely light in this. It's not heavy-handed. I appreciate that. I'm not a big, huge vanilla guy when it comes to beers. All that can flip on the script in the actual taste itself. But I like this nose. It's almost like a nice little small, like chuggable, drinkable coffee stout. The only thing I'm really missing here is oak and bourbon. Again, 6 and change, probably not that big of a beer. You're probably not going to throw a bunch of chips and soaked bourbon chips in there because you don't want to overpower the beer. I kind of appreciate that. Let's see if it shows up in the taste. Cheers. That's not too shabby. That bourbon actually does show up in the taste. It's not super aggressive, but it's definitely there. You get this little sweet pop from it. The coffee comes through, definitely comes off as a cold brew coffee. And by that I mean there's no big kind of dark, rich, roasty components to it. So it's cold brewed. You're dropping out all the bitterness, so you're just getting this coffee kind of, cold brew coffee. If you've ever had it before, you can know the difference between just a regular brewed coffee and a cold brew coffee and just that lack of bitterness in there. There is a bitterness to the actual roasted malt. Again, not huge, but for its ABV, it's decent. Soft little chocolate vibes in here. There is a little bit of soft creamer element to the way the coffee comes off, so I attribute that to the vanilla, whether it came from the chips or the bourbon or the actual vanilla addition or all three. None of it's overpowering. It's quite nice. It's a really, it honestly is a very hard beer for me to kind of speak to because it's such a weird... The act of a coffee bourbon barrel vanilla stout at 6.5, I keep wanting to say it's small. It's not thin. It's small. It's little. It's not as big as it should be, but it's 6.5%. This is not supposed to be a huge 2x4 to the face beer, and it's drinking right where it should be appropriately. I like the level of every adjunct, how it interacts with the beer. Nothing is too heavy-handed. The coffee's probably the most prominent portion of the show, but it's not askew too far away from the other ingredients. But then again, it is a coffee stout. It's supposed to show like that. Who knows how old it is? That coffee might have been bigger back in the day. I like it. It's missing something for me, though. I'm gonna say that. I think it might just be as simple as just a hair more sweetness. If you call this like a 6.5% bourbon oaked vanilla coffee export stout or something like that. Maybe my brain kind of readies itself for a little bit drier, a little bit less sweet of experience. And again, if you've watched my reviews before, I definitely like beers that skew a little bit less sweet than overly sweet, so I'm not really kind of railing on a beer. It's more of a nitpicky thing. If I'm going to talk about a homebrew, I really want it to have some kind of decent amount of information for people to work with. I like it, brother. I like it. It's not electric. It's not like blowing my door off, but I like the balance. My favorite thing about the beer is the balance between all the ingredients. Like I said, in a perfect world, to have just a skosh more sweetness, I think that would add a little bit of depth, a little bit of character to it. The mouthfeel, I mean, at 6.5%, it's really hard to kind of beef that up. It has a really pretty porter, like fluffy mouthfeel, more than like a stout mouthfeel, but it's quite nice. It's just a touch more sweetness to it. Maybe a knock up in the body in some form or fashion, I think, makes this a little bit more decadent beer, even with this ABV level in mind. But it's really tasty stuff. I dig it, man. Thank you very much for sending it off. I love Homebrew Wednesday, man. It's my favorite thing, and it's like the one I do try to do 2 a week, or post 2 a week, and it's kind of the ones that I'm like, sometimes I have them, sometimes I don't. I have a decent amount in the can right now. A bulk of it is from Everett Brewing because he sent off like a poop ton of homebrew. But this is delicious stuff, and it's actually one of my favorite things. Mystery beer is always going to have a soft place in my heart, but Homebrew Wednesday is pretty fun too. So there you go. A little homebrew in the books. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, and if you ever feel like sending off some homebrew, reach out to me. Matt@massivebeers.com or massivebeers@gmail.com. Massive Beers, so type that into Google. See me doing the social media stuff. Beer Massif, you can type that into Google. See me doing the podcasting stuff. Yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed our review. Hopefully you're enjoying a little bit of homebrew right now. Hopefully see you next time. Cheers.